All right, welcome back, Inebri-ites. This is just our little 1 minute plug for our friends. And this one's a really special one. We are really excited to be sponsored by the Art Shop here in Plymouth at 84 Main Street. 84 Main Street. If you live in Plymouth, you realize Court and Main Street's kind of the same thing. That's why I got confused. So it's Jesse and Eddie. They were our first podcast way back over a year ago. And so they've decided to sponsor us this month. So they've given us a bunch of stuff to give away at our life drawing, at our craft beer and coloring, and our new game night at the end of the month. If you want information on those, you can check it out on Facebook. And if you get a chance, if you're in the Plymouth area, make sure you stop in the Art Shop. It's directly across the street from the Plymouth Memorial Hall. It's on the second floor. It's a gorgeous space. I know they have some classes there on different art styles. They did a printing class where they used like actual fish. I was going to say live fish, but that's not true. They were dead. But actual fish to do like a print with them. There's a specific name which escapes me. And there's tons of artwork. Jesse's one of the most prolific artists I know. Painting, drawing, pastels, you name it. And Eddie is a great jewelry maker, so there's plenty of really nice pins and earrings and whatnot. So we want to thank the Art Shop for sponsoring us this month, and make sure you check them out. They are also on Facebook. Yeah, so if you get a chance, stop in there and pick up some one-of-a-kind unique art or some prints or jewelry. And thanks for listening.
That is weird.
Because when I was like, oh, we're getting Robbie, and then I'm like, oh my God, Robbie was in high school when I met him.
Dude, I was, I think I was like 16 years old the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I was sophomore in high school. Yeah. So maybe even 15. Yeah, did I just say 16? I think even 15.
That's crazy.
So I've known you for half my life.
In my head, you are still that age.
I know. I don't doubt it.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just starts recording when it feels
okay.
like it. So welcome back, Inebri-ites. This is Andy. We are back here at the Craft Beer Cellar on Main Street in Plymouth. If you're ever in town, make sure you stop in for all your craft beer needs. And we are here with Robbie Furness.
Robbie.
I
don't go by
Robert.
That. Going
Rob.
back to 15 years ago, I don't go by Robbie
So
anymore.
what do you go? Just Rob?
Just Rob now. That's my adult name.
Oh, you're a grown-up now.
I've evolved.
We're just saying I've known Rob half his life.
Yeah.
When I met him, he was Robbie.
Right.
It's funny because even back then, I had no idea that you had an interest in writing at all. I don't think it ever came up. And then one day you were like, "Oh, I write for a living," and I'm like, "Get the fuck out, really?"
Yeah.
So at what point did you start taking interest?
At the point that I realized that I probably wouldn't be able to make a living drawing or visually with the arts, and I took a real liking to
But you draw well. I mean, It's not like you don't. I have a drawing of yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely I pursued it pretty heavily from from a very young age all the way through to even college. I was a major in fine arts at one point, but then I just didn't think that I was going to be able to get what I needed from it, financially. Unfortunately,
it's funny because it's like when you get most people, they have that. Oh, I'm not going to be able to make a living at this. Writing isn't the natural. It's usually like, I guess I'll go pour concrete or something. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I just liked writing a lot, and creatively. And right now, I just write for websites. It's not particularly creative, but it's still interesting enough, and it allows me to hone my crafts, quote unquote, while I just pay the bills.
Well, sometimes I feel like because if any of my English teachers in my entire life ever hear this, I actually do some writing as well for work, and they probably all just drop dead. but I find it to be incredibly challenging to write for something that doesn't really interest you, and it's like,
oh boy,
how do I make railing sound exciting?
Let me tell you, there's nothing more exciting than spending 8 hours a day writing about doctors and lawyers and HVAC for the last 6 months.
So do you work for a company that works on websites?
Yeah.
And so whoever pays them, you end up writing for them?
Yeah. So a lot of HVAC companies, a lot of lawyers. What else do we get a lot of? I don't know. Auto
stuff. Is there like one client that you're like, yes, I get to write for? I don't know. No, there's no one.
I think the most interesting client that I ever had to write for was a strip club, actually.
That sounds interesting.
So it was kind of interesting, but it was also kind of uncomfortable because I have, at my computer desk, I have my writing open on my laptop, and then I have
the strip club website.
I have the strip club website open on the other.
I'm working.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So there's where my desk is positioned. I'm basically like in the middle of the room. Mm-hmm. Anybody coming in or out can just look at my screen and see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, quickly open it, like read what I need to read on their website, close, like minimize it so that I can just like then write without having to worry about that. But
I've had somewhat of a similar experience. I do a lot of social media stuff for the company I work for, so I maintain their Twitter account, and Twitter has no safeguards. Yeah. No, like, you can post whatever you want. Yeah. And so, like, you follow some company that looks like they're a crane company, and you're like, all right, that kind of fits what we're selling. I'll follow them, and it's either some scam, like, fake one put up, or like someone hijacks their password. Next thing you know, there's hardcore porn. You're like, whoa, how do I cover it and delete it at the same time?
Yep.
And of course, my desk faces the entire, like, my computer screen faces the office. So that's I've gotten better at kind of picking up on those, but it's interesting.
I had a very, very similar experience with a plastic surgeon website that I'm writing for right now.
Yeah.
They do all their they have all their services, and I was opening up a PDF file of what was their old website, and I'm like scrolling through like just blocks of text, and I'm like reading through that. I scroll all the way down. Boobs. Just boobs. I'm like, whoa! Okay.
You just scroll up and you're like, scroll back down quick, scroll back up.
And then I'm like, that does a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's interesting. So
how do you go from that?
Yeah, you said boobs, I got distracted. Yeah. Sorry. So you also write for a blog.
Yeah.
And so tell us, it's a wrestling blog.
Yes, I write for a wrestling blog, Daily DDT. It's something newish. I think I've only been doing it for like 2 months, but going back to what you were saying, or what we were talking about earlier, is that, writing for the same type of company all day, every day is not very exciting, so I try to write about stuff that's at least a little bit interesting to me, which wrestling is actually very interesting to me. So yeah, and I have also written for a horror movie or horror website before, like reviews and things like that, which was actually a lot of fun as well, but then mysteriously it just went under.
The website just vanished.
The guy that was running it was like, "Yo, by the way, we're closing the website tomorrow." I'm like, "What? Excuse me?" And I didn't have time to grab any of my reviews or anything like that, and I wasn't using Google Drive at the time.
Yeah.
So it really sucked because I had spent some time on that site. But getting back to Daily DDT, it's just something that I picked up. It's more for fun than it is to like subsist. But
yeah, to kind of get that the fun part of writing. Like
yeah, exactly. And then who knows, in a couple of years, like it could move up from like just that like entry level like blog position to like more recognized news and stuff. So
yeah, well, you said so you've only been doing a couple months. How many posts have you?
I think 18 so far.
And you said one got like 10,000 views or something.
Yeah,
that's pretty great.
I know. I was so surprised because I was originally my like posts were only like like 300. Like my max post before that point was like 1,000 views, and then like I just stopped keeping track of the analytics because I was like, I'm not getting that many views. I'm just gonna keep doing and promote it for fun, blah blah blah. And then I just went on one day and I was like, what? This has almost 10,000 views in 3 days. And I was like, that's crazy. So, like,
do you know, like, why did it get posted somewhere? Or?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
That's always the weird part. Is like, and we're starting to see kind of that sort of thing with Inebri-art. Is like, we're getting downloaded in Japan and like Cambodia, and you're like, right. How does that happen?
I know, right?
Do they even understand like what I'm saying? I don't understand what I'm saying. So it's very kind of cool and exciting to see like when that happens. And so how often does that blog go up?
So I have not. It's just irregular. It's whenever I write an article. I do the NXT review. So for anybody that watches wrestling, keep an eye out for that. NXT review on
NXT. That's a wrestling show.
That's a wrestling show. It's run by the WWE, but it's like a developmental show that they have. So they bring in like new people and try to train them up to how to be like WWE superstars. Yeah. So it's actually really interesting because
my son's a big wrestling fan. I'm pretty sure he watches NXT.
Oh, really? Yeah.
A lot of this sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's a much smaller show. Like it's only an hour long, but like their crowds are only like in the hundreds instead of thousands. And, it's interesting because they bring in a lot of like indie talent. So like people that like wrestle at bingo halls, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah.
Will show up on NXT, which is really interesting because I go to a lot of indie shows. Like I went to an indie show in Worcester for American Rana 2017 last night, and some of those guys are going to be on NXT.
Oh, nice.
They've been signed to NXT.
So do you get kind of an opportunity to like interview these guys? Like,
not really. No. I haven't had a chance to interview anybody yet. So, but
because I feel like people at that level are super eager to talk, too.
Yeah. I mean, I think eventually they will be, but they're not... They're a little bit high. Like, I'm, like, way down low.
Yeah.
And even those guys are a little bit higher up than I am. Like,
yeah. But you always got to ask up.
I
you
know.
don't want to ask down.
Yeah,
you don't want to ask, like, the high school wrestler. Be like, hey, man, you want to give me an interview?
That's true, yeah. I've got to be a little bit more assertive with that. Yeah. But,
Inebri-art got a rejection... email from Trevor Noah, the host of the Daily Show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's one of those. Hey, he's in town. Okay, I'll just shoot off an email. I'll be like, hey, can you talk to us? And they're like, no. And I'm like, holy shit, they said no.
All right.
Yeah, it's like it didn't even go into their junk mail. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I will. Yeah. You kind of.
It's just one of those. It's surprisingly easy because you can just you don't even like have to do it like initially face to face. You just send off an email and it's just kind of anonymous, and you'd be surprised how like eager people are to.
Yeah, I should have for there's a wrestler Donovan Dijaks who I don't know if it's like it's very heavily rumored. I don't know if they've actually like announced it, but he's definitely going to WWE NXT.
Yeah,
and it would have been cool. This was his second to last match. With Beyond Wrestling, which is an indie promotion. It would have been cool to interview him, but I heard he was pretty intimidating, so I stayed away.
So why wrestling specifically? Just it's something you always been into, or?
So I was really into wrestling when I was 14, just before you met me.
Yeah.
And then I just stopped watching it throughout high school because wrestling's not really something that's cool. Even though I suddenly became like really into comic books after that point and Pokemon.
Comic books are cool, Rob.
Okay, but they are now.
Yeah,
they
weren't then. Yeah.
Definitely not back then. And then a couple years ago, I watched WrestleMania with some friends, and I got back into it pretty heavily. And now I watch it way more than I ever did back then.
Yeah, so. It's funny. Like I kind of had the same thing. Like when I was a kid, I watched it all the time, and that was like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Randy Savage heyday, and then I kind of same thing. You got to that point where you're like, it's you're like, oh, it's fake.
Yeah,
and then you get older and you're like, Yeah, of course it's fake.
But once you realize it's fake, like when you're younger and you find out it's fake, then you go, oh, this is lame, this is fake. But then when you get older and you're like, oh, this is actually like really like technical, and they're
Yeah.
it's like
It's fake as in predetermined, not as in they're not risking
Right.
bodily injury. Yeah.
And also, I mean, the effort that goes into it, and like, you know, back then in the 80s, it was like a lot more of just punches and kicks, and,
Right.
but now it's like they're
Much
so
more high flying. And,
yeah, they're so technical too. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it always seems like they push the envelope.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, like more and more and more.
Yeah, if you go to an indie show, it's like, oh boy, somebody might die by the end of the night.
Well, I'm sure they're probably trying to push it even more so
Right.
they get noticed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the point there. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just something that I really enjoy now, and you know, saw the opportunity to at least make a little bit of money writing about it. So I figured, why not?
Nice.
So
So I am going to go on the record and officially apologize.
okay.
Ant-Man is cool.
I know, dude. I've been saying this since 2000.
Oh.
2000?
Yeah.
2001?
Yeah.
At least.
At least, yeah. And it's like one Halloween, you're like, I'm dressing up as Ant-Man. And you did. And I'm like, oh my God, this kid.
I know, yeah. I mean, that was like...
You were the Ant-Man fan.
I know.
Like, in 42 years, never met one. And then it's like, you were so obsessed.
What movie was it? I think it was either X-Men 2 or Spider-Man 2, where I was just like, this is the groundwork for which Ant-Man will be built on. This is the anthill that will
And then they were like, oh, we're going to make an Ant-Man movie. And it just got, like, hung up. Because they were talking, like, back when the first Iron Man movie came out.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of just stayed in limbo. And then it finally came out. Like, did you go opening
Oh,
night?
yeah, of course, yeah. I went before, got, like, the poster. I got, like, the limited edition, like, ticket. It's, like, this clear vinyl ticket. It's really cool. My mom got me. I was like, as soon as it came out, I was like, I went to see it 3 times, I think. One time in the drive-in in Mendon.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So, man, I was so pumped with that movie.
It's like, I remember they leaked some test footage at, like, one of the Comic-Cons. It was just, like, him fighting some guys in a hallway.
Yep.
And the second I saw that, I'm like, shit, this movie's going to be great.
Yeah.
And, like, it was fantastic.
I know.
Like, I thought Paul Rudd, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Paul Rudd was perfect.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with it, actually. I was actually kind of afraid that, you know, it wasn't going to be funny.
Yeah.
Because, like, it was supposed to be funny, and I was like, is this going to, like, be weird and, like, tacky? But it's actually, like, funny, but very good and action-oriented as well, I thought.
Yeah, and, like, really kind of, you know, tugged on the heartstrings, you know, dad trying to,
of course.
you know, stay in his daughter's life, and, you know, it was really, really good, and so, yeah, you were fucking right.
I know, dude. Marvel, call me. All right, I got all the ideas, man. Yeah, I really like that movie. Now, next movie, they have to make a Zorn movie, X-Men with Zorn in it.
I'm not going to make any comment, because, honestly, I saw Logan.
I didn't see Logan.
Oh, it was really good.
I know. My friends all tell me that
But then,
like, made them cry.
I could totally see that. And then I hadn't seen, so I saw Logan. The X-Men movie I saw before that was the third one. No, maybe Wolverine Origins.
All right.
But it's like First Class never saw, Days of Future Past never saw. Never saw, kind of like, they weren't relaunches, whatever that kind of mix was. It just kind of lost. Like, once Marvel Studios started making movies, I was just like, fuck that. The X-Men movies are nowhere near as good.
Yeah, I saw those 3, and I had completely forgot about them until you just mentioned them right now. I was like, yeah, that X3 was the last movie. Oh, yeah. They had, like, First Class and the New Class and Apocalypse.
Age of Apocalypse and Days of Future Past.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, those were all pretty forgettable, obviously.
So. I think so, but some people say they're good.
I mean, they're fine.
So you say you would write the next Ant-Man movie.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, is that the Holy Grail? Or is there, like... Where do you aspire, and what do you see the next step being?
For me personally, like,
For you personally, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are other, going back to the wrestling thing, because I don't think like screenwriting and blog writing is so different. Like if I could, I would love to write it. I could write an Ant-Man script, I think, fairly well, but at least develop a story, probably not like, make it studio ready, but like writing for like a more reputable like news source for wrestling. I would also like to...
Not that the one you're writing for isn't reputable, I'm assuming.
Yes.
All right, I'm just making sure you weren't like, yeah, they suck.
No. Daily DDT is totally good.
Yeah.
But like to be like one where news is breaking and things like that would be, more of like a wrestling journalist than like a wrestling blogger. And also to potentially like write storylines and feuds and like write for WWE.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Like write their narrative, but I think that has a lot to do. You have to be like a television writer,
right?
Which obviously,
and I feel like a lot of that tends to be very much on the fly, because you could have a whole like 6-month plan for someone and they blow out their knee and you're like, shit.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely happened before. Yeah. So it could, but that'd be cool. I'd like to do something along those lines. That'd be really interesting, I think.
Yeah. So Robbie is now grown-up Rob.
Yes.
And I'll blow your mind. Liam is going to be driving next year.
I know.
But you have an offspring yourself.
I do, yes.
And how awesome is that?
It's awesome. It's awesome. She's almost 10.
Yeah.
She's 9.5 going on like 15.
Yep.
She's completely sentient, which is a real problem.
It's fascinating to see them come up with their own opinions.
Yeah, fascinating and infuriating.
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm telling you to do this, and they're like, well, I don't want to. I'm like, I didn't ask if you wanted to.
When did this become a dialogue? This is more of an instruction. Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
So do you? And it's kind of, for me, it's a rhetorical question, but our listener would like to know. Do you see like yourself and her, like, is she getting interested in the same thing?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, everything that actually, let me rephrase this. I am able to relive all of the things I love about my childhood because of her. Like anytime like I'm doing something even remotely nerdy that I'm like, I'm 30 years old, I should be a little embarrassed. I'm like, wait, I have a 10-year-old here.
Come do this with me.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, anytime we go to conventions, it's like, oh, yeah, we dressed up, and, like, I just dressed up because, like, she wanted to dress up, and I didn't want her to be, like, by herself dressing up,
We're bonding.
Yeah, exactly.
What is she gonna be?
I haven't thought of that yet.
I don't remember.
My costume's gonna be awesome, though. Let me tell you about it. But no, we've gone to, like, conventions, we've met, we've gone to WWE shows, all the nerdy stuff.
Yeah, and she's also a drummer? No. But you're a drummer.
I am a drummer. Okay. Yeah. I got her a drum set, and I made a really nice drum set, but she never plays it, unfortunately. Yeah. So, well, it's in the basement now, but it is what it is.
It's very interesting. Liam has started playing the saxophone. Actually, not started. He's been playing for a while now. Started playing the saxophone, and it was funny because I never encouraged him to pick up an instrument, and I'm like, I used to play the saxophone. He's like, really? Oh, you can teach me? And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't. I said I used to play. It's just funny, like how those kind of things just weirdly kind of rub off. And and Zoe draws now. She's really? Sometime in the last 2 years, it went from, oh, that's really nice, to, holy shit, that's good.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's just fascinating to kind of see that happen.
Yeah, it feels like it all happens in very obvious stages too, where it's like you said, it's not like a slow progression. It's like they were, yeah, you're good, and then oh wow, okay,
yeah,
you're very good. I actually went to my daughter's in camp, and I just went to one of her camp things earlier today, and she was on stage singing. And, most parents are like, oh, my child is very good at singing.
Yeah.
But my child is very good at singing.
Yeah.
Once the nerves round off, but she was, singing in front of not just, a couple of people or her class. She was singing in front of everybody in camp and all like the parents that were there as well. So it's just like, okay, like going off of what rubs off. She's got like a little bit of singing talent.
Nice.
And I was in chorus in high school, so.
Wow, you were just a nerd all around.
Yeah, I was the worst kind of nerd. Like, everything I could, like, get made fun of in high school, I was like, all right, sign me up, let's do this.
Yeah, nice. So, where did you go to school after high school? I feel like that's kind of like, I knew you in high school.
Yep.
And then I ran into you at a convention, and you had a daughter, and I was like, what the fuck happened?
I know. So, after high school, took 2 years off, and just like played video games.
Yeah,
just that was it. I just took 2 years to just work at a convenience store and play video games and live with friends, which was awesome. And then shortly after that, my daughter was born, and then I went back to college.
And then you're like, I have to be a grown up now.
Yeah, I was like, making $400 a week's not really going to cut it here,
right?
So, or less than that. But anyway,
yeah.
And then I went to school at Bridgewater State University, or college at the time.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's a university.
Yeah, my diploma says university, but I paid for college.
See, you got in right on the radar.
Yep,
nice.
Exactly, on the ground floor. So.
That's awesome. And was this company that you work for now your first writing gig, or did you work somewhere else?
Yeah, it was pretty much my first writing gig. The company I worked at right after college need not be mentioned. Even in...
You worked for Voldemort?
Yeah, the Dark Lord. No, I worked at, like, some payroll software company. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's... In college is when I sort of decided on writing, because I went for fine arts.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, this is gonna take... First off, it was gonna take 5 years, because, like, the art courses or something were, like, twice as long as every other course, or I don't remember the specifics.
And to make it as a fine artist, not saying that anyone can't do it, because I would never, but that's hard.
Yeah.
That you have to be, like, super dedicated, and...
Which, yeah, I was...
I'm not saying that you're not dedicated,
but... No, that's okay, because I don't think I really was.
But you almost, like, need, like... You almost need that I'm going to make $400 and live with friends mentality after you have your fine arts degree.
Yeah, right, exactly, working at a convenience
and you're
store.
like, I'll make it at some point.
Yeah. So I did that for probably a year, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll be like an English teacher, because I like writing and I like kids, and then... That was also going to take 5 years. And I was like, I got to get in and out. Like, I got to be moving on here and finding a job. So I was like, all right, just give me my English degree and let me get out of here and just hit the real world, please.
Yeah.
And then, a few things led to another. And then now here I am. I just sort of fell ass backwards into the writing position that I have now. So
I feel like that... the best laid plans just never...
they just crumble.
I'm going to be this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to work here, and then you get, like, a semester in, and you're like, I don't like this.
Yeah, yeah, that's...
Yeah.
It's kind of what happened. I mean, I don't really keep up to date on my... or do much with my art anymore as far as drawing. Like, I do, like, some illustration for my band and stuff.
Are you currently in a band now?
Yeah.
What's the name of the band?
Blame Shifters.
Blame Shifters?
Yes. We have a band camp. Look us up. We have a CD called Domesticating the Tiger.
You have a band camp? What do you mean?
It's like a band camp.
It's that's like an app or something. Oh, okay,
it's a website for like bands to go on and post their music.
Well, because you're like, I like teaching and I like kids. And I'm like, wait, are you running something else and you didn't? So Blame Shifters can be found on Bandcamp.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I cut you off. You had a CD?
Yes. It's called Domesticating the Tiger, which is a play on the fact that all of us are now... Well, we were a band in high school, we got back together, and all of us are now adults.
Oh.
So Domesticating the Tiger is like, I'm married, have kids, everybody else is like forced into their position as like, working 9 to 5. And
right.
Sort of like the dream of being a punk rocker is dead because, yeah.
So this isn't like a boy band?
No, it's not a boy band at all. We all play instruments.
And punk rock is...
Yeah, for lack of a better term, I guess.
Like, what bands would you say influenced your music?
Bands like punk rock bands, like NoFX, Against Me. You know what? I was thinking of this question. I was like, this question comes up every time I mention my band, and I can never come up with like a concrete set of influences, but like Minor Threat, things like that. So, and
do you guys ever get to play out somewhere? Or?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Oh really? Nice. Where do you play?
So we played at like the Middle East, upstairs and downstairs. We actually had a show in Lowell last week, or Saturday, which was at Uncharted in Lowell, which was a lot of fun actually. We have a show on Thursday at O'Brien's with a band called Bundles, who opened up for a band called Masked Intruder. Yeah. Which is signed to like Fat Records, which is a record company.
So like, you went from being like, oh, I'm domesticated, to being like, I'm kind of living the local rock star life.
Yeah, kind of.
And I'm writing for wrestling. I have to have a crappy day job, but everything else is awesome.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I buried the lead in that.
Yeah, a little bit. You're like, oh, yeah, I write for an insurance company. One time I wrote for strippers. Oh, yeah, and I have a band, and we play out like all over the place. And
yeah, the band, we play out. Yeah, so O'Brien's on Thursday, I think.
Like this coming Thursday?
Yes, Thursday.
By this goes out, it'll be past.
Okay, so when will this be posted?
This will probably go up sometime in late August, early September.
Okay. All right, so that show went
So the
really
show that
well.
you just got signed, that's awesome. You're going to come out on Is Elektra still a thing?
I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Okay, never mind.
But, okay, so we have a tour in October at some point. So
like out of state?
Yeah, out of country. Well, out of state and out of country.
So it's like I'm assuming Canada.
Yeah. Come on, it sounds better out of country, not
it's
just
still
Canada.
Another country.
Yeah.
It's one more country than my band has visited.
Yeah.
Fish, you want to be in a band? Okay, never mind.
All right. Northeastern tour of like down to Philadelphia. I'm not planning this one out.
Yeah.
But like Philadelphia, Rhode Island, Philadelphia, maybe Chicago, up to Toronto, Montreal, someplace in Maine, and then like everywhere in between. New York as well.
Oh wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be
Jesus.
Yeah,
like we call it domesticated tigers because now we're grown ups and going on tour.
Yeah, going on tour for the first time.
That's great. So you guys have you must have, if you're going that far, you must have like swag T-shirts and.
Yeah, we actually do. Yeah, we have pretty dope T-shirts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you design them?
I did not actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I wanted to, but we got somebody else to design it who wants to be an artist.
Yeah.
Lucas. And he did a really great job.
Yeah.
They're really cool.
It's always kind of like, I can do that, and then they do it, and you're like, oh, yeah, but you did it better.
Yeah, exactly. Like, when our guitar player was like, hey, I have this cool T-shirt design in mind, like, why don't you give it a shot? And I was like, okay. And he's like, I'm going to have Lucas give it a shot as well. I was like, okay, cool.
And you both show up in the day, and you have yours, and you see his, and you be like, I forgot to do it.
Yeah. Basically, I, drew this, this little, thumbnail sketch. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's like a skeleton riding on a tiger.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, this is really cool. This looks great. And then I saw Lucas's, and I was like, oh, he put real effort into it. It looks way better than mine. And the skeleton is actually interesting looking, and mine's just terrible. So forget it.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. So if people want to, we do have listeners in New York.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we have any in Canada yet. Where can they? Facebook is where all the and Bandcamp, which is apparently a thing.
Yes.
And all the dates we posted there.
Yeah. Once they're
official.
Yeah, I guess we haven't really officially. Well, by the time this goes out, I'm sure we would have officially
announced
the tour. But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So definitely, we're on Facebook. Blame Shifter, facebook.com/Blame Shifters, and then Bandcamp as well. I'm not sure what our Bandcamp.
Are you on MySpace? I hear that's a band thing now.
Really?
That's what someone told me once, because they're like, oh, I have a MySpace. I'm like, why do you have a MySpace? They're like, oh, it's a music thing. And
we don't have a MySpace.
Yeah. But it's funny, the Barron's Collectibles MySpace still exists.
I know, dude. Like, at one point I was like, I wonder what Andy's up to. And I was like, I don't know you, but I didn't know your last name. I just always knew you as Andy Barron. So I was like, Andy Barron. Andy Barron's Collectibles. Like, Barron's Collectibles.
Yeah.
And all that I ever found was, like, your MySpace page.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I can find it through here.
Because the website's long gone.
Yeah.
If you don't pay them, they don't keep it up.
Yeah. Jeez, can you believe those guys?
But it's weird. Every great once in a while, I'll get like a phone call on my cell phone, and they'll be like, "Is this Barron's Collectibles?" I'll be like, "No."
It used to be.
Yeah. Now I don't even go into that because I'm like, I don't know who you are, what you want. No,
not interested.
But yeah, I can't believe like it doesn't like it didn't occur to me, but that was like 15 years ago.
I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Man, that store was awesome, too.
It was a lot of fun.
I, remember the first time I drove by it, I was with my girlfriend. And I was like, is that a Boba Fett cutout, in front of that door? I thought that was an antique store. And she's like, yeah, I think they put comic books in it, but just keep going. I was like, okay. and then the next day, a week later, drove by, there was, even more stuff out. I'm like, I gotta go in there. Even if it's just, an antique store and they just happen to have, random stuff out there. And then I went in and I think you only had the first two sections.
Yeah, when I first it was the whole thing was just so strange because I had called all over town trying to find retail space that I could afford that made sense, whatever. And it was getting to the point where I was frustrated and about to give up. And then these people called me.
Oh, wow.
And was like, oh, blah, blah, we have the space. And I went down to check it out. And it was an antique store, but it was like a co-op, so they rented out certain spots to, other antique dealers.
Oh, that's
And they're like, you can take it over, but the only stipulation is you have to let the antique people stay. And I'm like, so the antique people are going to stay and pay me rent, and I can have my comic book shop. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, fuck yeah, okay, why wouldn't I do that? And then, slowly over time, it's not a market that crosses at all.
Right.
So the antique people would come in and see less antiques, so they wouldn't come in. And so the antique dealers made less money and eventually moved out, but gave me time to kind of build clientele.
Yeah.
So it worked out great. And out of all the marketing I ever did, the things that brought in the most customers were those stupid cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, dude.
And it got to the point where wherever I saw them, I would buy them. And they worked for you. They worked for tons of other people.
Yeah, and then you had the big sign.
Yep, yeah.
And I had my barf card up until probably
oh my god, I forgot
ago.
about the barf cards.
Yeah,
why were they barf cards? It was Barron's
Army of Radical something
fanboys. Probably.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's funny. I forgot all about that.
Yeah. I was
Did you not have a barf card?
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it was the frequent shoppers. Every $10 you get a stamp. Kind
yeah,
of thing.
And then you get 10% off a subscription or something.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty good. I mean, I bought a lot of comics, so I used it a lot.
It was one of those things certain people used it a ton.
Yeah,
and you're kind of these people kind of hosing me, but but in the same spot, it's I'm rewarding the customers who are coming here all the time.
Yeah,
and 10% is a big deal. But I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of cool people at that store. And you.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk to J-Dupe?
Yeah, I do, actually. I saw him not too long ago, a couple months ago at one of our shows. He's still into all of the same stuff.
He's still J-Dupe.
Yeah, he's got sleeves of Super Smash Brothers characters on his...
last time I saw him, I think was at a Super Bowl party, and he was just starting it.
Oh, yeah.
And to the point where he pointed out the NES controller they had done backwards or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, because they probably, drew it the right way,
and then they transferred it to something, yeah. But, and I'm sure our listeners are oh, tell us more about J-Dupe.
He's a pretty cool guy.
Oh, yeah, he's great. He's funny. So what's next? I mean, are you going to... I ask him what next. And so I'm going to tour. Do you have any immediate plan that you're I'm going to start writing a book, or have you ever thought of writing a comic?
You're breaking my heart. You're breaking my heart. So,
sorry.
I actually a while ago, probably 7 years ago, I was big into Beast Wars when it came out. I love Transformers, but specifically Beast Wars. I went on this website probably like 7 years ago called Transformers World 2005 or something like that, and we started like this like online comic book project called Beast Wars Future.
Okay.
Just like a huge collection of talent as far as artists, and I was just like completely outmatched in that element. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna write. Like, we have all these great ideas, all these great artists. Like, let me write something for this. Because I was like, that's when I was starting to like. That's when I was working on getting my degree for writing. I was like, this would be awesome. The project basically like reimagines the Beast World universe, like there was like some Discovery TV show called like the Future of the World or something like that.
Oh, I think I remember that one where it's kind of like, you know, mankind has fallen and kind of like what kind of creatures would exist afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it had like imagined all these creatures. So the artist took these creatures and then like reimagined them as Beast Wars, and then, you know, we went from there. And I wrote 180 pages worth of stuff for this story, and it felt like as soon as I started writing, everybody was like, I'm too busy. I was like, so I was totally bummed out about like the whole thing, and I thought the story was great because it put my favorite character, which was Tarantulas, in like the forefront, like what he was in like the first season of the show, like throughout. It made him basically the main bad guy, like always like working in the shadows versus like Megatron and Optimus or what, Optimus Primal. And they were like, that was like the main story, but like the bigger story was like, you know, Tarantulas working on the Vox and things like that. But
I pretend like I know what he's talking about.
Oh, you didn't know Space Force?
No.
Don't worry, I'm following along.
All right.
Oh, you
yeah.
It's an age gap thing.
Okay.
I'm that age bracket of, you know, you grow up on the 80s cartoons and you get just a little older, and then you get, you know, the early 2000s CGI, which is, you know, early 2000s CGI and not good. But the storytelling was better.
Yeah.
And, like, not 80s toy cartoon bad, so you cared.
Yeah. It definitely revitalized the Transformers, franchise.
Absolutely, yeah.
But anyway, there was the one artist who I'm actually friends with, Brett Wolf. He did these unbelievable storyboards for like the first 3 pages.
Yeah.
And he actually, for my birthday, which was a couple months, well, actually it was 6 months ago now, but I just got it a couple days ago because in Japan he travels or whatever, and he sent it to me. Dude, I was like, thank you so much. It was of Tarantulas, you know, like at the forefront, and then like it had the art. I forget what the 2 shuttles were in Beast Wars, but whatever, they were like fighting, and it had like Megatron, and he's just a really good artist. Like when we talk about like people that could become like comic book artists, like if he wanted to, he could definitely do it.
Yeah.
So that was that one like really sort of just like broke my heart. So I just can't go to another comic book, but I have been working on a sort of an anthology collection, I guess. But.
Yeah, and it's funny. Is like I see a lot of artists that put out a comic book, and I'm not saying like it can't be done, because it's done a lot, where someone writes and draws their own comic, but it's a totally different skill set, and it's like it can look beautiful, and then you read it and you're like, this kind of dog shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard, and then you take into account like how much time that takes to do both, you know?
Right.
So, unfortunately, and I'm just not that good at drawing where like I can like for 12 or whatever 24 pages or 12 pages like put together like very interesting, you know, images throughout.
It's because for a long time I was like working on some ideas with some friends, and like I never got to the point where I was like actually drawing the pages, and then it finally occurred to me, it's like I just don't really have that skill set, because to draw, it's not just, hey, I can draw really well. Like you have to make the drawings make sense and look like they come one after another and tell a story. Like if you took the words out, you kind of have to still know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the hardest part, I think, is like figuring out like or laying that whole process out is just it's like you get fatigued trying to figure that part out.
Right.
At least for me. It's just...
Or then you look at the page and go, it's just two guys standing next to each other the whole page. So what angle do I draw that from? All right, well, I draw this really extreme angle. Well, why? That looks stupid.
Right.
Like, it looks super dramatic, but nothing dramatic's going... And it's difficult. It's not, So if we have any young, aspiring punk rock writer, wrestling fan, possibly comic book writers out there, what kind of advice would you give them?
Be willing to be malleable with what your interests are and what you're willing to do with those interests. Like I said, when I was 15 years old, I was like, I'm going to be a comic book artist. Here I am with all of my comic book boards that my mom bought me, and then I go to my first convention with my stack in my hand, and I look at somebody else that's like, yeah, I can't get a job either, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna burn mine.
Well, the funny thing, and that's also an excellent point, is sometimes you see people I can't work for Marvel, or I haven't been able to get a job with Marvel, but you don't know the backstory. I know people who draw amazingly well.
Yeah.
But you just have to have this pig-headed stick-to-itiveness where you just okay, they turned me down, I'm gonna try again.
Yeah.
It's I've heard stories that Marvel will just up front turn you down.
Yeah.
And it's like the scene from Fight Club where the guys stand on the porch and they tell him no. And you have to stand on the porch for 2 days before they're like, all right, you can come in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, luckily now everything is so accessible, as far as social media. So if you happen to just write an interesting story and people get into it, then you can just have a webcomic and then it can develop from there. Nobody would have thought that Walking Dead would turn into what it was. It was just Image comic, Walking Dead #1. Nobody gave a crap about it. And then it was
before Boston Comic Con existed, there was these competing shows, and I was at one of them in Boston. I forget what it was called. And I just got turned on to Walking Dead, and someone had issue 1. And I'm like, how much is that? He's like, $175. I'm like, fuck that. I would saw off your arm to get that. Not my own. Yours. But, yeah. It's just god damn. No one would have thought that was...
No, I mean, it, just came at the exact right time, and the story was interesting enough. I think I was in your shop at one point, reading issue number, or maybe it might have been Newberry Comics. Sorry,
bastard. But it was funny. I didn't read it for a year because people would be like, "What's good? What should I be reading?" I'm like, "You need to be reading Walking Dead," and I couldn't keep it on the shelf long enough to read.
Oh wow!
So there was a year gap where I didn't read it.
I was reading issue 6, I think, or something very early, and I was like, nah, this isn't a zombie story for me. Put it away. And then lo and behold, I remember going into your shop and being like, all right, I need anything Walking Dead that you've gotta take all these back issues and stuff, in the 20s or something. I actually sold off all of my Walking Dead collection from issue, I think I had from issue 30 all the way to 75 up until they got to Alexandria. And I sold it away so that I could go on vacation to Florida for a week.
Nice.
So it paid for my plane tickets for my entire family. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. But that is definitely the unusual thing. People be like, I'm going to save this and make a ton of money. Probably not.
Yeah. For every one of those issue 23 of Walking Dead I have 15 issues of Hunter Slayer #1 or The Defenders #0 or something that I was just oh god.
Right. Now that if you brought it to a show, you'd be like, oh, it's in the 50-cent bin.
Yeah, right. Can I complete this collection? Yeah.
I remember I had one guy come into my store and he had an entire box full of Image comics that were all #1s.
Yeah.
But it was all these titles where you're I don't remember this happening. And
that makes it more rare.
And he's like, how much you give me for it? And I was like, $20 and full long box. And he's like, that's it? I'm like, dude, if you left it here I'd be kind of irritated. And it's just people hear those stories I sold some comics and paid for plane tickets, and people are like, oh, I have comic books.
Yeah.
Not the right ones.
Yeah, probably not the right ones, but Man, do you remember the time I went to a small convention with you? And remember there was, like, at the end of the convention, you were, like, winding down, and then some dude was like, do you have any, like, busts? And you were like, yes, I do. And the guy, like, bought, like, 4 busts, and I was like, hey, I really like this Mysterio one because it, like, has Spider-Man's reflection in the face.
I remember that bust, though. Yeah.
And then I sold him that bust, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing a good job here.
I don't remember that convention.
I guess.
It might have been South Attleboro, because that's, like, one of the small ones I did all the time.
I remember it was, like, a wicked long ride, too.
Yeah.
So, well, you know, pre-having a
car. So it's probably like 40 minutes. Half your commute or something.
Yeah, it was like, now that I drive 2 hours a day for work.
Yeah. Well, Robbie, Rob, sorry, that's going to be a difficult habit to break. Thanks for coming on, man. It was good to catch up.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we'll definitely have you back on maybe after you guys tour. You can, because we have bands on kind of regularly.
Yeah.
Can you guys do like acoustic punk?
We could,
because like
I'll present it to the
like
band.
we've recorded with bands before, but like we're not set up to like record, full on bands. We have the mic and everyone crowds around the mic. Comes out surprisingly good, but it would have to be acoustic. Otherwise, it's gonna be noise. But we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
I'll bring it to them.
Yeah, I mean, even if you can't do that acoustically, because I don't know what acoustic punk sounds like.
It's still pretty loud. For me, so.
But yeah, even we can have you guys on, talk about the tour, because there's going to be stories.
Yeah, definitely. If it wouldn't be a successful tour if there weren't any stories.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for posting that you had 10,000 blog posts, because I'm like, wait, Robbie writes?
Yeah, I know.
Rob, I know Robbie has a real job.
Yeah, I do. I have 2. So, I don't have 2 jobs, real jobs. I have that job.
Well, it sounds like you have multiple jobs.
Yeah.
So that's I know what that's like.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was great to catch up.
Same.
Perfect.